I could have easily stepped back from everything. That would have been understandable. I didn't. I stayed connected and plugged into what was important to me, and I stepped back in places that I needed to so that I could also rest and heal. Hey, friends. Welcome back to the Make It Inevitable podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Zamora, and today I want to celebrate 1 year of podcasting, during which a majority of the time it's been a very difficult and challenging year for me. And I want to preface this conversation very, very clearly that I am not hustle over health. I am not goals over taking care of yourself and your life and your relationships. I am not push through, do whatever it takes, rah, 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 discipline no matter what. That is not me. That is not my mentality. That is not the context of the conversations that we have. I am a huge advocate of discernment. To work with me, to learn from me in any capacity, is to hear me say that over and over again. Discernment. Only you know what is right for you. And you might listen to this entire episode and celebrate with me that I have made it through this year and I have continued to put out my podcast. And also realize, you know what? You need to quit something. You need to rest. You need to take a break. You need to step away. You need to let go of a commitment or a goal that's no longer aligned for you. I celebrate and support that 100%. You are the only person who can determine whether or not it's time to push through or time to rest, time to quit, time to give up, time to see it through. Only you can decide that. So please do not listen to this episode from the context of me telling you that we should always push through. That is absolutely not true. I am queen of boundaries. I am queen of letting go of things that no longer align for me, even in the middle of them, even when I said I was going to do something else. And I take that very seriously. I am not flaky. I am not inconsiderate of other people. You might disagree with that. I honor myself and therefore I honor other people. And I will do that even in the most difficult of situations. So I celebrate boundaries. I celebrate stepping away from things, relationships, obligations, commitments, goals, whatever it might be, once we realize that they're no longer aligned for us. They no longer serve us. They don't feel good. We're not excited about them. And again, discernment. Sometimes things that we really want that are really right for us also don't feel good, also are hard and difficult and uncomfortable. Discernment. Only we can decide when to push through and when to rest, when to quit, when to walk away. So that is my disclaimer. This podcast launched in November of 2022. It launched a week later than I wanted it to. I was going to launch it on my birthday just because. And it launched, I believe, November 14th of 2022. And with the exception of one episode after my cats died, has come out every week despite how crazy and chaotic and challenging this year has been. This has also been one of the best, most beautiful years of my life. So the duality of this last year is tremendous. And since I launched the podcast, I met the love of my life. I met him on a podcast connection call. We are finally going to have him on the show, and we're going to probably air it right around the 1 year mark of us meeting, just because that feels good for us. But we met on a podcast connection call. Our friendship turned into a relationship within a month, and we were long distance at first. And that was difficult. I also lost my cats 5 days apart, my boys who had been with me for 15 and 12 years. Great little loves of my life. My family, I oriented myself around them at a level that I couldn't really see or understand until I lost them. One died very suddenly of a heart attack, and the other was at the end of his journey fighting kidney and liver disease. And it was heartbreaking and incredibly disorienting because they were my anchor. They were the center of my life. I had organized myself around them for so long, and they were always there through everything beautiful, hard, awful in my life. They were there. And so this was very unsettling to me, even though I suddenly had a tremendous amount of freedom to be able to go and meet my partner in Florida where he was, and to have him come out and to just navigate things more freely because I didn't have to worry about them. I was still incredibly heartbroken and very disoriented by it. So I had the new relationship, and we moved him here fairly quickly because we knew we were very intentional. We'll share about that story because I think it's a really great example of creating resonance with what and who we want and then aligning with that and moving on it very quickly. Even though it's scary and there's uncertainty and unknowns, like really feeling a core yes in something. This is a great example of that. So we'll be sharing that story. But it was a new relationship. We moved him here very quickly. We finished renovating the camper. We got into the camper. Suddenly, I'm living with somebody who is incredible and amazing, but I haven't lived with anyone in 5 years, and we're in a very small space. Everything, for the most part, was seamless, except I also got sick. So in March, I've talked about this a little bit on other episodes. I hemorrhaged for 18 days, which left me severely iron deficient and very anemic, and has been, continues to be a very big challenge in my life and relationship. Thankfully, I've been able to work, which is great because I love my work. I love my clients. I love being able to show up and support people. But I should say, it was very difficult in every other part of my life. Iron deficiency anemia is not a easy to fix thing. You don't just take a pill or get medication and you're all better. You have to find the right supplements. The supplements have their own side effects. I figured out that I had fibroids. I had a surgery to remove those fibroids. Turns out my fibroids are already back within less than 3 months. And I continued to battle iron deficiency. I am no longer anemic. I got iron infusions, which had its own side effects to contend with. And there was just a lot to deal with on top of grieving the loss of my boys, orienting to who am I inside of a relationship? Who are we as a couple? What is this life that we are now building together? And feeling everything change so rapidly. Even this camper that was mine, that I bought, that was my dream, was now hours to renovate and hours to live in. And there was so much change. And I hemorrhaged on the way to Florida. So I was at sea level when I became severely iron deficient and anemic. And when we got back a few weeks later to New Mexico, back at elevation, I crashed hard. I had deep depression. I had just a slew of symptoms, and there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong in my life, in my relationship, in work. I was just iron deficient. I didn't have enough iron. And so we have been navigating that for the last 6 months and 7 months at the time that this comes out. And throughout all of that, I thought a lot about stopping the podcast. I didn't feel good. I still don't feel good. There were many times, today included, that I recorded with a high heart rate and shortness of breath. And that is something that I'm still dealing with. Sitting here, trying to breathe, trying to settle into the space before recording, my heart rate was high 130s, which is not where it should be when you're sitting and you're relaxed and you're calm. So I also have the shortness of breath. So I'm still dealing with these symptoms, and I was dealing with them throughout recording. I was dealing with a grief brain. I was dealing with feeling very unsettled and unanchored in myself and my life because the cats were gone. And I didn't realize what an anchor and what a center point they were for me. Everything is changing in the business. We are evolving my brand into a whole new brand in business with a whole new model and a whole new team. And it no longer centers around me. And I've been sick. There's early episodes. If you look back through the episodes, there is one in particular where I am white as a ghost. I am so pale. I almost look gray in, I think, the video, but definitely the photo. There are times that my hair has looked ridiculous because I have lost hair and it's regrowing. There are times that the shortness of breath is a lot. I take a lot of extra breaths. It's hard for me to talk without getting slightly winded. Times where my heart rate was up. Times where the depression felt so real. And thankfully, I had enough awareness to know this is from iron. I just don't have enough iron. So I don't need to buy into all the depression stories and feelings. I just need to navigate through them, work on healing. But there were a lot of times where I didn't want to be alive anymore. I didn't want to be a person in the world. I most certainly did not want to have to deal with having a body. The depression was very heavy and very dark, and this is a symptom of iron deficiency and anemia. So I would show up anyways. I would rest like crazy. I rested a lot. This has been a slower year in business because I chose to rest. So again, I want to reiterate that I am not about hustle over health. There were so many times where I thought about quitting, and there isn't a single person that would have given me crap for that. Not one. Because everyone who knew me behind the scenes, who knows me well, who is part of this with me, who is part of my world actively, knew how bad it was, how sick I was, how sick I still am. Nobody would be angry at me or shaming or guilt tripping or judgmental or disagreeing if I had quit the podcast, if I had gone into a extended hiatus. Even now, looking at another surgery, looking at more treatments, there has been suggestion to pause the podcast, explain what's going on and pause the podcast. And who knows, I might need to. But I am proud of myself for seeing this through. Not because I'm so tough and strong, not because hustling is so important, not because I'm not a quitter, whatever stories we can tell, but because this space was and continues to be very important to me. With my energetics, I'm multi passionate, I'm a manifesting generator. It is common for me to switch gears, to start something and midway through realize this isn't actually aligned for me. I see a lot of things through because I'm getting better and better at choosing the things that are really aligned with me from the get go. But there are times that I'll walk away from something in the middle of creating it, in the middle of launching it, because I realize this isn't aligned for me. And that's part of how my energetics need to work. That's not true for everybody. It's most definitely true for me. And I always try to walk that line between just abandoning things midway through and being flighty and flaky and really honoring it's time to walk away from this. This is not right. And so this podcast, I had every reason to. And there were days that I wanted to. And that wanting to came from the depression, which came from being deficient in iron, being anemic. And I knew that. And I would write it out. So there were days, weeks even, where I was like, I don't want to run a business anymore. I don't want to write. I don't want to record. I just want to pull the plug on everything. And on those days, I also felt that way about everything else in life. So I would rest. I would stay in bed. I would do what I could just to nurture myself, just to take care of myself and get to the other side of that wave. And when I would get to the other side of that wave without fail and without thought or like trying to motivate myself or push myself or anyone else pushing and inspiring and motivating me, I would always decide to record. Maybe an episode, maybe a couple, even the ones where I would look at myself and be like, you do not look well. You look really sick. Or the ones where it was a fight to speak clearly. I have shortness of breath now, but I can project my voice more than I could earlier on in my healing, but especially before I had iron infusions. It was really hard to talk, to speak, to make my voice come out. And there are episodes with that. You can go back through them and you can see me pale as a ghost. You can see my weird free growth hair. You can hear when I don't have the energy or the wind. And I didn't want that to stop me. And for me, that was because this space has been just an incredible, energizing, expansive space for me. I know that it is for many of you who listen, and I appreciate that feedback and those reflections. And I want this to be of value to other people. It has been of tremendous value to me as well. And that is because in 2022, 2021 especially, I was very disconnected from my own brand, from my own message, from how I wanted to show up online, from what I wanted to talk about. I went through a series of experiences and relationships that really had me doubting myself and what I had to contribute. One in particular that made me feel like I had no business talking to anybody about anything. And so I had to go through a lot of healing work, healing from the years of trauma, the grief that was still there, the toxicity and abuse from the relationships, my own wounds and attachments, my own ways of causing harm to people that I loved. I had to really unpack a lot of things on a very deep level. And so it was very fruitful in that regard. But I had really strayed away, despite sharing almost every day on social media, had really strayed away from what am I doing? Why am I doing it? What is my purpose? What am I here to talk about? What am I here to share? And how do I want to contribute? I was just kind of going through the motions. And even in going through the motions, I know that I created content that was of value to people. I know that it was valuable to me in some ways. But by the time I got to creating this show, I was finally feeling clear again. Finally stepping back into my power, my sense of self, my purpose, my message, my work, my contribution. And I had done some little things before. Last summer in 2022, I did the summer expansion series, which was a lot of fun. I created and beta ran Actualize, which I'm so, so proud of. And we're going to work on revamping it and just broadening it probably next year. But I put that out there and I did, I think, a one off masterclass or two. And all of that was me feeling that something wanted to come through. For each of those, there was something that wanted to come through. There was this pull to show back up and to share everything that I had been working on in a way that was helpful for other people. So I dipped my toe, ran the program, all fairly small groups, which was perfect for where I was at. And I knew that this podcast was coming, and I knew that it was going to be Make It Inevitable. And I knew that it was going to be talking about how we make the impossible happen in a really tangible, process oriented way, because it's such a key part of this work for me and something that I love to study and to work on and to test and experiment with, and is anchored in our purpose, being who we're here to be, living fully expressed, building a life that's fully aligned for us. A lot of these things that we work towards through this work feel impossible to us. And having studied that for so long and experimented with it, I knew I wanted to have this show. I knew this show was the next evolution of the conversations that I had been having. And I didn't want to let that go just because I was sick. And I was sick. And by other people's standards, I should not have been showing up either, because I couldn't be all the way on. I couldn't always track my own thoughts. I definitely didn't look the shiny, successful, happy, healthy part. But I didn't want to quit this because I had a feeling that if I did, I would feel even more lost and disconnected from myself, and that it would take longer to get back to me. That was an intuitive, deep, visceral knowing. And that continues to this day. So I'm recording this about a month before it will come out. I am dealing with tachycardia. Which is high heart rate. I'm dealing with shortness of breath. I'm dealing with other health issues. I'm facing a surgery. I don't feel well. Truth be told, I do not feel well. I have gained back the weight that I lost because of a lot of the treatments, because I can't move, because of the depression. And there's a part of me that would love to use all of this as an excuse to step back, to just disappear. Because honestly, I would love to be able to do this work without being front and center. It's not my preference. There are certain personality types that love to be front and center. They want to be seen. They want to be the star, to be the center of attention, and not necessarily in a selfish, self-serving way, but they're wired for this. And for me, it's not my preference. I have learned to do it. I see it as part of the job description of doing my purpose work. But I would love to just be behind the scenes. And I know that there are aspects of this work where I can, especially with the evolution of the brand and business, and aspects where I can't or not yet. And this podcast feels to me like one of those spaces where I need to keep showing up. And I also want to keep showing up and to be willing to do that very imperfectly at times. I do my best to batch these for my own energy, for our podcast producer's sanity, just to stay ahead. Because if this last year, among the years before it, have taught me anything, it's that we don't know what's going to happen. And so I want to have that buffer. I could go into surgery more quickly than I think, and would be great to have episodes batch. So I'm always trying to batch. But I want to continue showing up honestly and showing that we don't have to be perfect in these things. There are times where we don't feel 100%. We don't look how we want to look. We don't sound how we want to sound. We're not as clear as we want to be, or as brilliant as we want to sound, or whatever it may be. And one of the best things that we can do is show up anyways. Again, discernment. Only you know the difference between that. I really believe that I will be able to discern if and when I need to step back from this podcast. And I am so proud of myself for me, that I continued showing up and doing this, because it has kept me connected. It has been a space where I can share these things that I'm learning and I'm putting together in a way that is hopefully helpful to others. And especially having more guests on the show. I started booking guests when I was on an uptrend. After my infusions, after the side effects of the infusions wore off, I had a lot of energy. I did not have shortness of breath. My heart was good. I was feeling really, really good. And so I started booking interviews, and those were much easier with that energy. Whereas now I am symptomatic again, and I am symptomatic in a way that makes this challenging. It's hard to breathe right now. I can feel that my heart rate is up. It's putting pressure in my head. I'm going to need to lay down after this. And it might take away from other things that I want to do today. And so having an interview feels like even more energy. It's longer, it's a conversation with other people. I like to be a good listener, so I'm always staring at the camera, I'm always smiling. And there are more guests that I'm going to record, and I'm going to keep showing up, even if I have to show up imperfectly, even if my hair looks bad and I'm not able to breathe as well as I want, and my energy isn't perfect and my thoughts aren't fully formed. I know that I can still show up and I can still do a really great job of having important conversations. And that's what I want to do for as long as it makes sense. And making it to a year, I'm celebrating. I'm celebrating. This is being recorded a month before, but it's the last recording needed. Like, all of the other episodes have been recorded for before this. And I will be recording episodes to take me beyond the 1 year mark. And getting here, I'm so proud of myself, because it was important to me to keep showing up for a variety of reasons. And I did it. And I did it despite valid reasons to stop, to quit, to pause. And will I make it to year 2? That's yet to be seen. Will it make sense for this podcast to go 2 years? I sure hope so. I love this show. I love these conversations. I love the guests that we're getting to have on, the guest experts, and those sharing their story from the messy middle, from the other side of making the impossible happen. But time will tell. We're also looking at bringing back Tales from the Journey, and my partner will be co-hosting that. So that will be great. It's not as much on me, but that's another show. And there's so much that's coming. And so I am proud of myself. I am proud of myself for pushing through and continuing to show up, because it was important for me. And also, I am proud of myself for slowing down and taking space and setting boundaries and resting in all the ways that I did over the last 6 months, 7 months. So it's both. And I hope that if you take anything from this episode, it's that discernment piece. Discern. I could have easily stepped back from everything. that would have been understandable. I didn't. I stayed connected and plugged into what was important to me, and I stepped back in places that I needed to so that I could also rest and heal. And I trust myself to discern down the road, whether that's in a month or 6 months or a year or 5 years, to stop the show if I need or if it's time. And discernment and pride. Pride is something that we have when we or people we love do things that are in alignment with our values. And this is in alignment with my values to show up around what matters, to figure it out, to allow myself to be imperfect when I need to. It would have been easy to quit because I didn't like how I looked, or I couldn't speak loudly enough, or I couldn't breathe, or my hair was weird, or whatever else. But that's not what's important. What's important to me is these conversations and the energy of the space and continuing to show up and have these conversations for me as much as for you. So that is what I am proud of, as well as the resting. And I'm looking forward to year two. Year two is going to be the same, but different. So we're going to be having the same conversations about what it takes to make the impossible inevitable, how the methodology is modeled through different people's stories. I'm going to bring on some really great guest experts who are going to talk about different facets of this work where they have more experience and this is their work. So we're going to talk to them about elements of making the impossible inevitable and having more people on. I'm also going to be doing some series. So there'll be some like 3-part series of episodes that will come out one after another weekly, but they will be part of something. So for one, the Somatics of series is something that I'm really excited about. The Somatics of receiving is something that I practiced last year, and there's going to be different Somatics of that will come out on the show. And then other series that I want to teach. And so it's going to be a really fun year. It's going to be all the things that I wanted to do last year but wasn't able to. And hopefully I have enough practice under my belt of doing this because I want to and because it's aligned for me while not feeling 100%. And so if I need to make tweaks to it, I will. And yeah, I will keep sharing my own journey of healing and finding wholeness and living out my purpose and making my impossible goals and visions a reality. And I would love to hear from you. If you're loving and enjoying the show, please leave a review on iTunes. That will help the show reach new people. If you know anybody who would be a great guest, if you feel like you would be a great guest, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I am looking forward to sharing everything that's coming in year two.